This free pattern duo from Unfettered Patterns is the perfect blend of simple sewing and standout style. It's a stretchy two-piece set featuring a body-hugging knee-length skirt and a long sleeve top. An easy project for sewists of any level, with a look that's ready for day or night. For my version, I'm sewing with a dusty lavender jersey from GK Fashion Fabrics. With its 4-way stretch and spandex content, it's an ideal choice for this set, and it was also the perfect weight for some no-fuss embroidery. Using my new Poolin EOC06 embroidery machine, I set up my hoop with 2 layers of tearaway stabilizer, marked the center with a heat erasable pen, and floated my fabric right on top with a little basting spray and a few pins to hold everything in place. Once it was secure, I selected my design and thread colors, pressed start, and let the machine take over. Watching it stitch across the jersey was such a satisfying process. Steady, precise, and surprisingly stress-free for my first time embroidering on stretchy knit. When the stitches were complete, I carefully unhooped the fabric and tore away the stabilizer to reveal the finished design. It instantly elevated my simple bodice piece, giving it a professional store-bought look with almost no extra effort. In this sew-along, I'll walk you step by step through the construction, sharing my favorite stretch stitches along the way. Whether you're using your serger or sticking with your regular sewing machine, you can follow along and see if my stitch settings work for your fabric too. Let's dive in and sew this stylish set together. Place the front and back bodice pieces right sides together and pin the shoulder seams. Sew the shoulder seams with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and press the seams toward the back of the garment. Here are my front and back bodice pieces opened out away from each other at the shoulder seam with the right side of the fabric facing me. Place your sleeve right sides together with its corresponding armhole. Align your notches and pin in place. Sew the sleeve in place from underarm seam to underarm seam with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Repeat to attach your sleeves on both sides of the garment. Then place the front and back bodice and their sleeves right sides together. And pin from the bottom of the bodice across the seam to the bottom of the sleeve. Then we'll sew this seam with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and press the seam toward the back of the garment. Complete both underarm seams and side seams in the same way. For the hem of the sleeve as well as the hem of the main garment, I'm going to fold the raw edge to the wrong side by 1 1/4 inches. And pin in place. Then I'll sew the sleeve hem and the bodice hem all the way around, edge stitching close to the raw edge. For the neckband, I'm going to pre-press a crease down the center, folding it in half, wrong sides together. Then I'll briefly open out that fold and fold the neckband in half the other way, this time right sides together. Pin the short end. Sew the short end with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then I'll fold the neckband in half once more down the center, wrong sides together. And I'll pin the quarter points. I'll also place pins along the neckline at the quarter points. Place the neckband and the neckline right sides together, aligning the seam of the neckband with the center back, and pin in place all the way around. I'll sew my neckband in place around the neckline, stretching the neckband slightly to fit the neckline without stretching the neckline material. Use a 3/8 inch seam allowance. With your seam allowance pressed downward, lastly and optionally, you can choose to top stitch the seam allowance all the way around. stitching right underneath the main seam line and catching your seam allowance as you go, with about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And now the top is complete. Place the front and back skirt pieces right sides together and pin the side seams. Sew each side seam with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and press the seams to one side. I'm going to hem the bottom edge of the skirt in the same way as I did for the top, folding the raw edge to the wrong side by 1 1/4 inches and pinning in place. Then I'll edge stitch along the raw edge all the way around to complete the hem. Place your waistband pieces right sides together and pin the side seams. Sew the side seams with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once the side seams are sewn, fold this piece in half wrong sides together along the center and give that a press. Place the waistband right sides together with the top of the skirt aligning the seams. Then continue pinning your way around, stretching the band to fit. Sew the waistband to the top of the skirt all the way around with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Somewhere in your stitches, leave a gap of about 2 inches so we can insert the elastic. I used my elastic pattern piece to cut my 1 inch wide elastic to size. Now I'll lace it through the casing, through the gap that we left in our stitches. Overlap the short ends of the elastic slightly and zigzag to attach. Pull the elastic entirely inside the casing and sew closed the gap in the stitches along the original stitching line. If you prefer, you can top stitch your seam allowance down just as we did for the bodice neckline, then your skirt is complete. Thank you for watching this sew along. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future sewing tutorials, and I'll see you in the next video.